earbuds to do so. And please use your earbuds so that only you can hear it. If you get a phone call or you want to call somebody, it's okay, but make it very quick, make it very quiet, and do not put it on speaker. If there's any sound coming from your phone, only you should be able to hear it. That's the rule. Okay, so we're going to be leaving any second now. And once we leave, once we are out on the water, you can move around. So the bridge connects Fort Lee, New Jersey on the left side to the upper Manhattan neighborhood of Washington Heights to the right. And now Washington Heights has the largest Dominican population outside of Santo Domingo. It's a very vibrant, exciting neighborhood. Their most famous native son, though, is actually, his parents came from Puerto Rico. His name is Lin-Manuel Miranda, and he's the guy who wrote the musical Hamilton. He grew up in Washington Heights and wrote a musical about life in Washington Heights called, appropriately, In the Heights. They made a wonderful movie out of it, directed by John Chu, the same guy who directed the Wicked movies. And so, but before it was probably Dominican, the vessel, 16 stories tall, you can buy tickets to go to the top of it. It was designed by Thomas Heatherwick of Heatherwick Studios in London. It's supposed to resemble a human heart. Now, I'm not a cardiologist, but I don't think that looks anything like a human heart. I think it looks like a pine cone, or something that looks like a beehive. Human heart? I don't think so. Alright, so this whole Hudson Yards is built on top of a massive land bridge, which covers up a train yard for the Long Island Railroad. For decades, the city wanted to cover up that train yard and build something over it, but they couldn't agree on what they were going to build. The former mayor of New York, Michael Bloomberg, wanted to build a football stadium there for the New York Jets. But then he saw the Jets actually play football, and he changed his mind. They have that effect on people. Okay, so now, here on your left now, we have these barges here. Barges set up to, they're rebuilding the Hudson River Tunnel. A train tunnel that brings commuter trains from New Jersey into Penn Station, which is under Madison Square Garden. That collapsed during Hurricane Sandy, so they're rebuilding it now. Now look to your left, keep looking to your left, because you're going to see in just a sec the OG of all skyscrapers. Here it comes. There it is, folks, the one and only, the Empire State Building. Empire State Building, 102 stories of Art Deco glory designed by William Lamb, and it was completed and opened in 1931, and for 42 years, it reigned as the tallest building in the world. It opened in 1931 after 13... Well, I guess that's romantic. Maybe a little crazy, too. Okay, now look here to your left. Here on your left, you're going to see, this is the Chelsea Piers Athletic Center. Huge athletic complex with basketball courts, driving ranges, swimming pools, weight rooms, a bowling alley, an ice skating rink, racquetball courts, pickleball courts, batting cages, all kinds of stuff. And you'll see here on your left, this is Pier 59 here. It's a driving range now, but Pier 59 is where you'll find the Pier 59 studios. That's where they filmed the interiors for the show Law & Order. But Pier 59 used to be the largest shipping dock in the world. And in 1912, something was supposed to dock there. All right, guys, what do you think would have been the largest? What do you think would have needed the largest shipping dock in the world back in 1912? The RMS Titanic. That's correct. That's where the Titanic would have docked. If it hadn't hit that iceberg, then we never would have gotten the movie. You know they're doing a sequel to Titanic, right? Yeah, James Cameron is directing a sequel to Titanic. It's going to have Kate Winslet riding on the Hindenburg. And it'll be a lot shorter, that's for sure. Oh, the humanity. Okay, so now on your left here, you'll see this green space on top of these stilt things. This, my friends, is the little island at Pier 55. And it was also designed by Thomas Heatherwick. And all this green space is built on top of these concrete stilt things that Thomas Heatherwick calls tulips. Sure, tulips. I think they look like golf tees, but what do I know? Okay, so now on your left here, you'll see that, well, this is a fireboat. Behind it, there's that grayish-white building. That is the Whitney Museum of American Art, one of New York's many great art museums. And that art museum was founded by Gertrude Vanderbilt Whitney back in 1930. Gertrude Vanderbilt Whitney was an heiress to the Vanderbilt fortune, and she had amassed a great collection of artwork by a bunch of American realist masters. And she wanted to donate. It was in 1930. Have all this green space here is part of the Hudson River Park, beautiful park. And I'm sure a lot of people will be lined up here to see the fireworks on Saturday. They'll be on. I think they're going to be at more than one location this year. Not positive though. Check the website. Fireworks are sponsored by Macy's department store. Now for most of New York City's history, cranes to get everything off the boats, well, there's just nowhere near enough room here on the west side of Manhattan to accommodate all that. So the shipping industry basically left New York. And so for a long time, the waterfront was a scary, decayed place with piers rotting away, and there was nothing to look at. But about 30 years ago, anti-Catholic sentiment in the U.S. at the time, so much so that the Ku Klux Klan actually followed Al Smith along the campaign trail, distributing literature claiming that the Holland Tunnel was actually a direct link to the Vatican. People believed it. I don't know what to tell you. Some things never change, I guess. And Al Smith, though, after he lost the election, a month later, he's at the Lotus Club, where they're honoring the new governor of New York, a guy named Franklin Delano Roosevelt. And Smith's campaign finance manager goes to him and says, "Don't worry, Al. Tomorrow I'm going to build a new skyscraper trade center." The new #1 World Trade Center stands at 1,776 feet. Now, of course, that's not a random number. Saturday, we're celebrating our country's 250th birthday because our country was born in the year 1776. The architect of the One World Trade was the late David Childs. Now, had they started building the new World Trade Center right after they unveiled the plans for it, that might have been the tallest building in the world for a while. But it took them so long for them to start building the new World Trade Center that by the time it was underway, they were almost done building the Burj Khalifa in Dubai. So that's the tallest building in the Western Hemisphere. At the moment, it's the 7th tallest building in the world, but they're building an even taller building in Saudi Arabia as we speak. So we'll be #8 pretty soon. And there are 3 smaller buildings in the complex. These brown buildings on your left here are called Brookfield Place. The glass arch thing there, that is an atrium called the Winter Garden. Open to the public, very beautiful. And on the other side of Brookfield Place, across from the West Side Highway, you will, of course, find the 9/11 Memorial. And the 9/11 Memorial consists of 2 square waterfalls, which represent the footprints of where the original Twin Tower stood. Etched in metal around those waterfalls are the names of all the people who died in the September 11th terrorist attacks. Not just here, named Jenny Lind, who they used to call the Swedish Nightingale. Okay, so, yeah. So then from 1855 to 1891, Castle Clinton was the immigration center before it moved out to Ellis Island. Then from 1896 to 1941, it was the home of the New York Aquarium. Now that's located on Brooklyn and Coney Island. Now when I was a kid, I was about 10 years old. They set up a circus tent here in Battery Park, and Cirque du Soleil played in New York for the first time. And my family went to see it, and it was a magical experience. But what I remember best is that after the show was done, there was this little old lady running all over the park going, "Hey, have you seen my husband?" And she had a poster of a Chippendale dancer. Yeah, I'm not kidding. I'm not making that up, I swear. Okay, look here to your left. You see the big orange boat there? That is, of course, the Staten Island Ferry. You guys can read. Staten Island Ferry. That's a free ferry service to and from Staten Island. Later, they had their first full day of traffic. and a bunch of people were crossing the bridge, and someone tripped and fell, and some moron yelled out, "The bridge is going to collapse under its own weight!" Panic ensued, and a dozen people were trampled to death on the day the Brooklyn Bridge opened. So to prove it was safe, P.T. Barnum of the Barnum and Bailey Circus fame held a parade of elephants across the bridge, led by the mighty Jumbo, and the bridge did not collapse. Now here on your right, this is the Fulton Ferry Landing. I'll tell you about that in a moment, but first look there to your right at that red brick building. It says Eagle Warehouse and Storage Company on top of it. That warehouse was turned into an apartment building in 1980. You know who's one of the first people who ever lived in that building? Me! That right there is my childhood home. I'm not kidding you. So the Fulton Ferry Landing here is, before there was a bridge, the only way to get across was via nautical transportation. So sailboats, starting during the Dutch colonial period, sailboats would bring people from the little Dutch village of Brooklyn into New Amsterdam on the Manhattan side. Then in 1814, Robert Fulton, who invented the steam ferry, started regular steam ferry service to and from that site, and that continued until 1924. Okay, so here on your right, Adidas is setting up I guess you call it a viewing party or fair for the World Cup. They have you can watch it on that big screen there. And here on your right, you're going to see this is the Jane's Carousel in there. And now on your right here, we have that building with the clock tower in it. That is, well, that used to be the home of the Greer Cardboard Box Company. They had their factory in there as well. This area used to be called Greersville, after the Cardboard Box Company. They also used to manufacture Benjamin Moore paint. Today, this neighborhood is known as Dumbo, and it has nothing to do with the Disney elephant. Dumbo is an acronym, which means down under the Manhattan Bridge overpass. You see, in the 1980s and 90s, artists on the never-ending quest of for inexpensive living and workspace, they could no longer afford to live in former industrial neighborhoods like Soho or Tribeca. They started to scope out the abandoned factory lofts here. And sure enough, they found, by the 90s, Dumbo had become a real thriving artistic neighborhood. But, as often happens, once the neighborhood became very trendy, big-time real estate developers bought it in, and now it's a chic, expensive neighborhood, very familiar pattern in New York. The former mayor of New York, Edward Icott, she once said that artists are great at building up a neighborhood, so they can't afford to live there anymore. Okay, so now on your right here, this is Greenpoint, Brooklyn. Here on your right, this is the northmost neighborhood in Brooklyn. Greenpoint is famous for its Polish community, and you get the best kielbasa and pierogies you've ever eaten on Manhattan Avenue here in Greenpoint. That's what this stretch of First Avenue is called, Bedpan Road. And you'll see there in the middle there, you see that brick and mortar building on your left, in between those glass buildings? That is that's the old building for Bellevue Medical Center, which is our oldest hospital. Bellevue is famous for its psychiatric ward. If you're not quite right in the head, we send you to Bellevue. What Bedlam is for London, Bellevue is for New York. Okay, look here to your left now. You're going to see the NYU Langholm Medical Center, these glass buildings here. This is their big campus here. You know what's important about NYU Medical Center? It's where I was born. A very long time ago, I was born there. Bell bottoms, moon rings, Jimmy Carter, what a different time it was. And when I was born here, there was a disco song on the radio called Native New Yorker by a group called Odyssey. And my mom used to sing it to me. And when I was a kid, I heard the song for the first time, and the opening lyric goes, New York City girl, 25, hello baby, New York City girl. And I was like, Mom, did you really want a girl? I mean, that explains those culottes you bought me in 7th grade, but really? Okay, so here on your right, This is Long Island City, Queens. Queens and Brooklyn are part of Long Island. And this is really the first urban part of Queens. It's kind of where Queens met the rest of New York City. Until 1910, if you took the Long Island Railroad into New York, you had to terminate right here and get a ferry into Manhattan. They didn't build a tunnel under the East River until 1910. And this used to be a very heavily industrialized area. They manufactured all kinds of things out here in Long Island City. Swingline staplers, Ronzoni pasta, chiclets, sun plant out here, a bottling plant out here, which you're going to see the sign in a moment. Now, at one point, the New York City Mayor Michael Bloomberg made a very aggressive bid for New York City to host the 2012 Olympics. And this was where, ultimately he lost, of course, to London, but this is where they were going to have an Olympiad. So basically this was instead turned into this brand new residential community with a beautiful park. And, well, it's nice if you can afford to live there. I'm sure it's great, but I wouldn't know. Okay, so look here to your line is landmarks. That means it can't be torn down, and it also means Pepsi doesn't have to pay for it. How convenient is that? Pepsi's available at the snack bar, by the way, but you do have to pay for it. This heat, very refreshing. There's a scene in the Woody Allen movie Manhattan. There's a scene where Woody and Diane Keaton are sitting on a bench, and the sun is coming up behind this bridge. I remember that. This is Roosevelt Island underneath it. Look carefully, you'll see those ruins there on your right. That's the old smallpox hospital, designed by the same guy who designed St. Patrick's Cathedral, James Renwick. A lot more people would like to go to St. Patrick's, I'm sure. But anyway, this is not part of the island of Manhattan, but it is part of the borough of Manhattan because it's in New York County. This is the Four Freedoms Park here on your right, named for the four freedoms that Franklin Roosevelt said all Americans are entitled to. Freedom from want, freedom from fear, freedom of speech, and freedom of worship. And this was first called Blackwell Island, then it became known as Welfare Island, and then in the 70s it was developed as a really beautiful residential community called Roosevelt Island. And now the UN, this all used to be a bunch of slaughterhouses were here. They called this Blood Alley. After World War II, John D. Rockefeller Jr., the Rockefeller who built Rockefeller Center, purchased all this land. They tore down all the abattoirs, and the land was donated to the UN. Chrysler Building, the Chrysler Building, opened and was completed in 1930, designed by the architect William Van Allen. And for just less than a year, it was the tallest building in the world. Then the Empire State Building opened. And that building was already under construction when it was bought by the auto magnate Walter B. Chrysler, who told William Van Allen he wanted it to be an advertisement for Chrysler automobiles. So he decorated with gargoyles and it meant to look like quarter ornaments for a 1929 Chrysler, trimmed it with steel chrome. Now, the Chrysler Corporation never actually owned the building. It was owned by the Chrysler family. But the company did have offices in there, and they had a showroom on the street level as well. Okay, so I'm going to take a little brief respite right now, let you guys talk amongst yourselves, and I'll be back in just a little while. Tenements and into bigger, more accommodating, better apartments. It was a mixed blessing though, because these buildings were never very well policed or maintained, and they kind of developed a bad reputation. But nonetheless, these are public housing projects. Now we're going back underneath the Williamsburg Bridge once again. Now, what you're looking at here on your right, this whole area is the Lower East Side of Manhattan. Immigrants came here from Ireland in the middle of the 19th century, escaping the potato famines, and after the Civil War, a lot Eastern European Jewish people from escaping Tsarist oppression started moving in. And you also had Italians and Greeks and Slavs and Poles, all different ethnic groups living down here in this, what was basically the blue flame of the melting pot that is the United States of America. So now when the Williamsburg Bridge above us opened in 1903, the Lower East Side had become the most densely populated place on Earth. The population density down here was even greater than it is in Kolkata today. So when this bridge opened in 1909, it was really a safety valve for the Lower East Side. Numerous thousands of families left the Lower East Side for Brooklyn. They could move into bigger apartments, or in some cases buy their own house if they had saved up enough money. And many of them, of course, were Jewish, so they would walk across the bridge on Saturdays to go to temple on the Lower East Side. Because you're not supposed to drive a car this Sabbath. That's considered work. And now, there used to be over 80 synagogues on the Lower East Side. Now there's less than a dozen. This is a brand new park here in Collier's Hook, which at one time was the lowest rung on the economic ladder in the whole city. The poorest of the poor lived here a long time ago. To your left, you'll see the Brooklyn Navy Yard. And today, well, once again, the Brooklyn Navy Yard, we talked about it earlier. Today, most of it has been repurposed as the Steiner Movie Studios. And it's a huge film and television production facility where they have, where they make, what else? Greatest Showman, Bridge of Spies, many others, plus TV shows like Gossip Girl and Just Like That and The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel. Okay, look here to your right now. Avenue in Brooklyn. About it and came up with this real grand idea about building a lighthouse shaped like a rope woman that could be placed at the mouth of the Suez Canal. So he draws up some schematics and makes a few models and travels to Cairo, where he is granted an audience with the Khedive of Egypt. And at first, the Khedive of Egypt thinks, wow, what an awesome... At first, the Khedive of Egypt thinks, wow, this is going to be awesome, let's build this thing. But then he finds out how much money it's going to cost and says, yeah, you know what, I think I'm going to have to pass, it's a little too pricey. So, so that didn't happen. The lighthouse in Cairo the lighthouse in Egypt never happened. So instead, Bartholdi remembered that a couple of years earlier he had gone to a dinner given by a guy named Edward de Beaulieu for the Franco-American Society. And Edward de Beaulieu had suggested that the people of France should build a monument to give to the people of the United States to symbolize the friendship between the two countries. Statues completed, well, he raises all the money, and the statue's completed in 1884. And they assembled the whole thing in Paris. And on the 4th of July of that year, the French government formally gives the statue to the people of the United States in a big ceremony. And they then take the statue apart. Move it or lose it. Hey, I'm sailing here. All right, so they assembled the statue in Paris. They formally give it to the United States on the 4th of July of 1884. Then they take the whole statue apart, pack it up in a bunch of crates and send it to New York, where it's put in storage for over a year. They put it in storage because the city's in such bad financial straits, they can't afford to finish building that pedestal she stands on. Out there, people were occasionally sent back. But the vast majority of the people went to Ellis Island were processed within a few hours, and then they would have to, they would be processed. All right. So, imagine you're on a boat coming from some other country. You arrive in New York Harbor and you see the magnificent Statue of Liberty. Now, from 1892 to 1954, over 12 million of those immigrants came through this island here on your left. This is Ellis Island. Gateway to the Golden Door, the gateway to America. Now, the Ellis Island Immigration Center opened on New Year's Day, 1890. To get to somewhere else in the United States. Okay, so now, Hoboken, there once was a time when your breakfast might have come from Hoboken, because Maxwell House Coffee, Lipton Tea, Hostess, Wonder Bread, all used to have manufacturing plants out there in the square mile city of Hoboken. And it's also famous for being the place where they shot the classic movie On the Waterfront with Marlon Brando and Eva Marie Saint. You don't understand, Charlie. You should have looked out for me. I could have had class. I could have been a contender instead of just a bum, or worse, a tour guide. And also, it's most famous for being the birthplace of the chairman of the board of Old Blue Eyes, Francis Albert Sinatra. All right, guys, what's your favorite Sinatra song? There's only one acceptable answer. What is it?